and tribulations, tests, trials, and tribulations, tests, trials, and tribulations, tests, trials, and tribulations.
What if the empathic pain you carry is not just your own, but a legacy of silenced women who once held divine authority? Today, we journey into the forgotten priestess lineages whose wisdom was buried, misused, or erased, and how their suppression fuels the very mother wounds we now seek to heal.
Tests, trials, and tribulations.
For spirit to be rooted into physical, it must be catalyzed into form, intercourse, man's ability to shape the world. Welcome, listeners. This episode reveals how the ancient and disempowerment of the priestess laid the psychic groundwork for today's empathic suppression, particularly in relationships with emotionally unavailable or spiritually manipulative mothers. Mothers manipulated to survive patriarchy herself, and whose greatest strength was giving us life under it. Breathe. Breathe. Begin when you are ready to be seen. Place both hands gently over your heart, or one on your heart, one on your womb. Breathe. Remember the breath of your foremothers. Let the veil fall, not between you and them, but between you and forgetting them. You are entering the field of oracle origins. Here we do not ask questions to get answers. We ask to remember what was never lost. The mirror does not judge, correct, or compare. It reflects you as you are. Here, you will not be healed by force, but by frequency. This is the domain of the first priestesses, those who called the stars by name. You are the return. And so it begins. At the beginning of each successive age, seeds of both evil and good are planted. Evil expressed as chaos, and divinity as order. Divine creative chaos is the age in which we find ourselves yet again. The knife to heal or kill, smelting the metal into form. Masculine, militarization, external, internal empathizing to liberate self and others, or to suppress. Feel what others do not feel for themselves by absorption. The knife to heal or to kill. Did you know matriarchy was central to the spiritual governance of prehistorical society? Before land ownership, militarization, statehood, and centralized power, there were land rights, communal responsibility, spiritual states of individual and communal power ruled by empaths. Today's question for the Mama Drama Trauma Healing Oracle deck to Great Mother is: when they fear me, what are they really seeing? When my mother doesn't trust me, when my mother behaves as if she is jealous of me, or that she cannot stand me, what is she fearing? When I walk into a room and there is immediate disgust or rejection, energetically, why is there fear? Why does the energy of fear follow me? Is the question today. Because we cannot speak of post-chaos without addressing present chaos. Present chaos, as we experience it today, shows up in patriarchy, shows up in how we and our mothers have had to survive it and have had to maneuver and manipulate ourselves through it in order to do it. Hoes and hip hop, stripper culture, even all the way back to discussing sacred priestesses and sacred prostitution. The incel, involuntary celibates of the world, and blue pills, red pills. The three eras of slavery that we know very well in the United States, of course, the African and Native American slave markets that founded, formed, and built this country. 1.0. 2.0 is the bank sharecropping, and 3.0, the after body bondage, continued with the actual stock market executives and single mothers, many of which were our mothers, entering the executive workforce, building and establishing it in all of its industries as the drivers in secretary over as secretaries, overeducated oftentimes in the workforce, in publishing, music, fashion houses, home decor, artificial food and healthcare, daycare centers, all things new and improved, of course. And so the culmination into the 4.0 present era of chaos being digital dependency, in which we find ourselves communing here today. At the beginning of each new age, both seeds of evil, the ignorance or the ignoring of divine law, and the divine law seed of order, both are simultaneously planted. What seed are you planting at this era? Is what Great Mother wants us to be aware of, because that is what our experience will be. So, for today, as we explore the womb of the priesthood, we want to ask Great Mother, when they fear me, what are they really seeing? This is a 3-card read. The first card is the mirror card asking what part of me triggers their fear. The second card is the memory card. What ancestral wound is being reenacted? And finally, we ask Great Mother for the medicine. How do I return to embodied power without reaction? Or as she teaches in the Mama Drama Trauma Healing Oracle deck, how do I live in loving detachment? The first card for the mirror is Durga, the Martian full moon gut chakra card, Durga, for boundaries. And so this new moon energy is where we find ourselves now, just emerging from the black moon of Leo in the Jyotish. And this Martian energy is in Virgo. It's in the healing sign in the Jyotish astrology. And right now, Leo is where we've come out of this new moon, this black moon, and now we're in the new moon phase. And this solar energy, this sun energy is shining through this reading, in fact, because we're going to talk about the priest today. Mirroring the priestess. So, Great Mother saying that the mirror, what part of me triggers their fear, is that powerful priest counterpart energy within me, that powerful masculine energy of the knife within me that can militarize, but because I'm so powerful, doesn't need to externally do that. It's felt by my presence, but because others do not understand that my military is an internal war that I manage through managing my triggers, those unhealed wounds. I don't need to stab you, but there's fear there. So there's this mirroring that's going on, that others are seeing the truth of themselves, the combative nature of themselves, the power that they themselves do not acknowledge, do not enact through our very presence. Durga, boundaries. The second card is another new moon card. This is the root chakra new moon card of Newt, unseen, unheard. Unseen, unheard. In answer to memory, what ancestral wound is being reenacted? And so the wound that's reenacted when they fear you, when they fear us, is feeling unseen and unheard. They are mirroring how we feel. And so we bring that energy oftentimes where we go because, well, no, I'm not going to really find anybody to talk to here. I know I'm not going to really, I really don't even want to be here. It's just, and people pick that up and they tend to treat us accordingly. And that scares a lot of people because they couldn't imagine a life actually confronting that shadow every day, living with that truth every day that we are unseen, unheard, and we are unappreciated and unrecognized and whatever you can think of because of the karma that we carry to just share what we have from our hearts, whatever that may be. The blessing is in the living of that. It's not from others. And so that is perceived as a very heavy karma, even by ourselves, until we begin to actually benefit from the blessings. And so the memory has not always been such a happy memory, giving, 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 sharing, 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 especially as we go back millennia. And so when they fear us, what are they really seeing? They are picking up on that memory code. They're picking up on that codex of experiences and rationale based on being unseen and unheard. It's very heavy for people to be around us oftentimes. And the third card, the medicine. What is the medicine for this? Great Mother says in this second gut chakra card, but this is the balsamic moon card, the phase right before the black moon. So this indicates to me that during this week, we were all in a processing phase. Gut chakra, of course, we process our food in the gut. This is the P in the aspire, the six suits of the deck. Spell aspire because we do aspire to live in loving detachment. And that's the medicine. How do we return to embodied power without reaction? How do we live in loving detachment from this feeling of being unseen and unheard, this root feeling? That's how we're rooted in the world, and that's just kind of how it is. It's not just how it is who we are. We are agents of the divine. Our angels, guides, and ancestors don't walk around demanding our recognition. We are not our angels, guides, and ancestors, but we are guide like. Think of it as this: old souls and guidance training. That's what this lifetime really represents. And so we're similar in that way, frequency wise. So the medicine is to process this, letting go the balsamic energy, that download this week from Great Mother. Many of us, you have probably received as well as I did, to let go. I'm kind of lisping today because I'm letting go of mercury amalgam dental work done when I was a child. And the mercury's been coursing through my bloodstream, and it is now time to let it go. I understand it's going to take a very long time for that to happen. The physical is just the beginning. So, again, that militarization is both physical and internal, that knife that cuts. So there's our reading. Our mirror is Durga, those boundaries, that gut we immediately know, that survival, that gut is survival, it's instinct. We know what is going to preserve our lives and what is not. And we honor that. What part of me triggers their fear? We have strong instincts. And when we live by those instincts, we survive just fine. We don't have to worry about our self preservation, our needs being met, any of that. When we adhere to what we know, we've lived long enough and come far enough to know what it takes. And we are in a different environment. All of the scenery has shifted. Right now, the sands are shifting underneath our feet, but regardless of the scenery, we know what it feels like. We know what direction the vibe is and where to go. We don't have to waste energy and worry about that as long as we honor it. Our needs of survival are met. That's the mirroring. That scares people because we make moves that don't make a lot of sense a lot of times. And that is because we know for ourselves. The memory of being unseen and unheard is as a result of that. This is kind of what we have been doing in this training, which takes lifetimes upon lifetimes before the physical body can be released into just living in spiritual form. Spiritual does not have form. In the spirit frequency, and that air frequency, that water frequency is what the ancients really honored. And so when we talk about that, we're also talking about the yin and the yang, that electromagnetic field. So, what is patriarchy? Patriarchy is monogamy for women and polygamy for men. Just in a real short definition of what it is, that's what polygamy is. It's monogamy for women and polygamy for men. And it's about humiliation, religious control through subjugation of sensitivity. It's about the nuclear family, um, in the sense of, in modern terms, of course, polygamy was the ancient way, after matriarchy, but now it's the nuclear family with a man at the head that has the self interest, the guidance for the family, the orientation towards self versus community and society. That's second, but is always co opted somehow. Because remember, whatever we do to others, we do to ourselves. And so there really aren't self interests, they mimic the interests of what the patriarchy is. And so when we talk about Black women in particular being co opted through cultural appropriation, we are specifically talking about the actual inversion of the priestess matriarchal order. And so that's why there's such an obvious, during this period of chaos, an obvious demarcation between Black women and white men. So we have women that are born from the original Holy Grail in dynamic dialogue with the divine. The sky, the earth, the wind, the water, the newts, the Mayats, the Durgas, we come from these celestial and terrestrial forces created from them, within and without. Bodies that channeled spirit, life force consciously through passages of spiritual essence that we were taught in and trained in through the mystery schools, where blessings flowed not as some type of, you know, n- um, platitude, but these were actual spiritual transmission codes that we learned and that nourished and sustained our internal dialogues along these codexes based on the duality of the anima animus, the actor and the acted upon, the creator, the creatress, the witness, the witnesser. This reciprocity about balance, about resonance, is the foundational. So when we talk about the root of the priestess, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about this idea of right or wrong, of good or bad. We're not talking about morality that trends. We're talking about the universal reciprocity of rebirth and dissolution that is a reality. And so when great mothers, varying energies, are this macro to micro experiential expression, with water flexibility, serenity, crashing danger, crashing waves, rivers, brooks, streams, marshes. We talked about um, the first living beings coming from the sea onto the shore and why the snakes so represented that. And so this idea of fertility comes from that vortex. And so, this fertility of deities and all great mother deities somehow representing fertility, that's why that is the impetus for human life in its complex manifestations. The fish smell, the water ring for copulation, the vessel, the shrine, the grand tapestry, the fabric of life, the weaving, the weaver, the shepherdess of transformation, the midwife of life and death. And so all of this symbology was real. This is how it actually was during the golden age of the Divine Mother. And so we've talked about what was known during that time or remembered about life in the divine matriarchal age and this golden period called the age of Mami, the age of mothers, Yuga. This is the Satya Yuga, described across cultures as a time when humanity lived in balance with nature, spirit, and the feminine principle, as I just described. That's the golden age. Make no mistake. That is the golden age. And so we often mythologize about this, and it has these striking consistencies from Africa to India to the old Americas to the ancient Europe that we know. And so, he- what is commonly known or reconstructed about this age, of course, is that it is about this original source of all life, not as gendered deity. And so we really want to understand that. It's about the matrix of creation, this yin and yang. And this is very important to understand in today's context when that is all becoming, to many people, discombobulated. When we're actually on our return anyway, whether we realize it or not. All of the LGBTQXYZ. That's the way it's always been throughout history before patriarchy. Patriarchy has been nothing but a 2,000-year experiment. We're talking about millennia, okay? And so this is a failed experiment. And this is the way it's always been. Okay. And so that's what we want to understand are these dynamics a little bit in relationship to the extremities of patriarchy. The extremity of matriarchy, of course, is the golden age, but it goes even deeper than that. We talked about these societies being matrifocal or not matriarchal in the modern sense of the grandmother heads the family, but it's more of the women were the lineage. Yes, they were the heads and the leaders in ritual and in healing, but everyone had a role. Men were not subjugated, but lived in cooperative balance, often as protectors or carriers of the sacred masculine in service to life, not conquest. There's a reason it's called manual labor. Those were things that men did. They did the hard agricultural work, the hunting, the building, the crafting, the iron work. We also crafted, we also did those things, but the majority and the hardest of that work they did, and the hardest of the internal, the homework we did. And we met in the middle, balance. We met in the middle. So, this water womb earth, sacred space we all shared, the rivers, springs of life, because that's where we all sprung from. The oceans were the temples. You see these old pictures of these old black women and all these white clothes going to the rivers. This is just the way it has always been. Of course, caves were wombs of initiation. And so the earth was seen as a living being, the primordial womb. And we connect to that space as empaths. We understand that space, and we are extensions of her body. That's why we feel the nature as intuitive empaths. That's why we feel the animals. That's why we feel her other children. We feel the unity. And that's the way we've always been. Now, we as human beings all evolve to this state of sensitivity, which takes many, many lifetimes. But understand that when we talk about the serpent, we're talking about imagery that symbolizes this energetic force that we represent, of renewal, of this feminine wisdom, not evil, but of elevation, of the Kundalini connection from the divine through the actual physical experience of self preservation in the physical world. And having to be on the ground, literally, in the world. So, we've covered that, but it's important to to know and to repeat until we get a really good grasp on this area, that when we're talking about our mothers and how we connect to them, it's through this age, and this age is only remembered through dreams, symbols, sacred texts. And that's why Great Mother called us to study spirituality, because we needed to remember in order to connect to that body, that maternal body memory of woman within us, not the wounded one under patriarchy. As much as it pained us to do that, to connect with our own menstrual mysteries through the illnesses that we've had, the cancers, the tumors, through those healings. Those were not, again, punishments, but were processes to trigger the wound healing of birth power from an energetic level, not just a propagation level of another physical human being, but that intuitive birth cycle, that evolutionary cycle. Our intuition today is very different than what it was 2 days ago, 2 weeks ago, 2 years ago, let alone 20 years ago. You know, it is never something to scoff at. It's always good and it's always valuable because it's a confirmation. But the quality of it, the relationship we have to Great Mother, intensifies. This memory survives through the rituals that we're guided to, the water libations, the moon offerings, the trance dancing. Okay? And so, in this trauma of loss, the lessons have given us echoes of the great fall, of the murder of the goddess in our mother, our first goddess. We watched her be crucified. As she crucified us, we mirrored that. We feared that, which is why it was so difficult to even acknowledge it. And so, this is important as we get into this topic, because we're not just approaching a new age. We're not just living through an age to get to another one post chaos. We're remembering the original one. And this has nothing to do with a code of behavior that one must follow in order to be okay, or rules that you have to follow, or a group that you have to join, or anything like that. It has to do about the return of the priest, priestess in you, the rise of your own prophecy within you, the awakening of your own ancestral womb within you. That's the post chaos. That's the healing. It's within you. It's that memory that signals the primordial mother's existence is not lost, that you have not lost your mother. And because you have not lost your mother and you have embraced her, who has been waiting for you to awaken to her, you can exit one age cleanly, another age of chaos, but this time cleanly, without remorse, without anger, without holding on to anything or anyone, but cleanly transitioning into a new cycle so that you can reinstate your sacred feminine nature. Be you male gender, female gender, be you transgender, that you can be your own organizing principle and not just in reverence of some figure, be it the biological mother or the moon or the this or the that, but within you. That's the post chaos. The knife is internal and external. The lessons come from the loss. We know that there is a blessing from the mess, and each pain point is a portal. So when we talk about the timelines and the record of this codex, it affirms that through the Dogon cosmology, the Nomo emerged as four pairs from the cosmic waters. Now, of course, this was also a um, appropriation from European and Mediterranean cultures of the mermen and the mermaids that came from the cosmic waters, giving a total of eight beings. And so these eight are often described as the first ordering intelligence. And so that's what we are. We are the first ordering intelligences moving forward in this post chaos realm as we heal the internal yin yang, because we're no longer separate beings as in physical pairs. They were not gods. They were not gods in the Western sense of the omnipotent divinities, but rather ancestral powers or cosmic functionaries, each embodying an aspect of balance and polarity. Okay, so each of the four pairs represented different things, and they were flawed as the first appearances from the cosmic waters onto the shores. Okay. And so you get that kind of serpent theme going with the snake, with the fishtail. This balance between the masculine projection and the feminine reception, it was incomplete and served as a mythic explanation for why chaos and disharmony first entered creation. It wasn't gelled into one like we are. We're still struggling through it. We're still struggling to make that balance. And in the African pantheon, the octet of nomo pairs operates as the seed matrix of divinities. And so, uh, you know, that's basically these mirror images. And so we have all these mirroring issues that are going on with our leadership today, and what is it that it is mirroring within us, which triggers us so much. And that's why the message Great Mother gave, and the angels specifically, after the last election, was to acknowledge the true winner and the true winner within yourself, and to work with what is triggering you from this illusion and delusion that's going on. So every step um, has information for us. Every piece is really important to understand because as women of this cosmic womb, able to generate life with this high sensitivity, we have certain capabilities that we can tap into when we are healed. And it's not just being the most popular or having a successful business or whatever, although those are wonderful, wonderful achievements, as well as being a great mother, a great parent, a great father. The wonderful achievements in the organic world as a classroom, when we are dealing with the comforting wisdom of great mother to guide us through this balancing process and nurturing our individual growth, we want to tap into that to be able to sustain those things that we create, those beautiful families, those wonderful prosperous businesses within a communal life that's not about keeping up with the Joneses or these levels, but we use our abilities to connect with others in balance with what is needed in the community from us so that our needs are received as well. Not always in a transactional monetary way, but in the sacred realm of dealing with soul synchronization. And so, this soul synchronization can only be understood when we go back to the priestess relationship and the personal development that we have in relationship to it today is always about harmonizing our own internal priestess or priest with our communal well-being. So it's how we mirror. So our question of great mother is, what were we mirroring to others that triggered their fear of us? We want to know what we are mirroring from others so that we are using our abilities to constantly transcend the physical challenges of present chaos and the potential of our lives within our communities as they grow. Because all the work that is required to transition through post chaos is on our shoulders. No one else is going to come and do it. And so the self discovery required to do that and the resilience is about this discovery of this inner strength. And so let's talk about the root of that, just diving right in. Parthenogenesis, the idea that Mary performed a virgin birth came from mommy priestesses who did this for millennia during the golden age for generations and generations, untold countless generations, and was witnesses by several historians, in fact. And they were dumbfounded for millennia. And that's part of the usurpation as well. But yeah, when we talk about virgin birth and Kemet, Kush, and other matriarchal systems, it was never about purity in the Christian sense. It was about a woman's sovereignty over her creative power. So we've talked about this creative power being about balance, being about resonance, not so much about producing a life. It's being able to heal yourself and being a healed person internally. As we create a life, we create healed life, or a life that is unhealed. We have the capacity to assist it should it choose to receive our assistance. not just to produce a business, but a business that heals as a transaction in the community. And so, this type of sovereignty of creative power bypassing the male seed. And so, we're talking about bypassing money, the type of transactions that we're talking about. And so, parthenogenesis is encoded in these ancient mysteries where priestesses aligned their bodies with cosmic currents to conceive without sexual penetration. Okay. And so, what is known about this is that Kundalini as a concept emerged from parthenogenesis. The serpent was both symbol and technique. It taught us about this process, as other mermen like Oannes and Eo and different people throughout history have been mythologized as teaching humanity civilization, how to hunt, how to um, cultivate agriculture, how to, read the stars. We were taught how to work with this Kundalini energy. And the priestess would raise energy up her spine, coiling like a pneumo or oribus, fusing lunar, solar, and stellar currents within her womb. And so, this lunar fertility timing cycle of rituals comes from that. And aligning with eclipses, solstices, or Sirius risings associated with Ises, when feminine reproductive cycles were synchronized with celestial tides. And so, all of this intelligence coming from these four pairs representing different uh, tribal, if you will, alliances and be they not perfect. It's not about perfection and purity. It's about the intelligence that gave us what we needed to be balanced in this world. And so, through these sacred waters, the priestess would immerse themselves in the lakes, rivers, sacred springs, as this Isis and Philae, uh, Yemia, Mamiwata shrines and symbology teach us. They would use water as the conduit for drawing spirit seed into the womb. Okay? And so that's the association with the seawater and the fish in the womb. Now, the initiation requirements to be able to do this, not every woman, okay? So just like right here, it's 5, 6 of us right here. Yes, it's very few, even around the globe, okay? But we knew each other, we communicated with each other telepathically, and we would travel to meet each other through initiations. And we've talked about that, especially last time. So, not every woman could attempt parthenogenesis. It was reserved for those who had undergone years of seclusion, training, 7, 12, 20 years in temple lodges, learning serpent control, breath work, lunar science, herbs, sound vibration, trance induction. So, chastity in the sense of focus is what it was about. It wasn't, oh, I'm not going to be able to have sex for 20 years. No, it was about focusing on what we needed to focus on, not as a virgin or being untouched, but as a sovereign, not bound by male possession. The womb had to be fully claimed as its own. So there was still probably sexual intercourse with males going on, but with a whole different attitude, which we see in the Bible when we talk about who was the other woman besides Eve with Adam? Black Moon Lilith. That's right. Black Moon Lilith, who is mainly discussed in the Jewish tradition, I believe, but she mounted Adam, was the deal. That is all about the female wounding because she was rejected for having the power that she had. Somebody can remind me of that. I can't think of the exact story, but you know, um, who had that power. And so these blood mysteries, mastery over menstruation, some priestesses were trained to consciously halt or call down their bleeding, showing deep command of uterine energy. And this serpent initiation involved ingestion of sacred plants, of course, trance with snakes, or symbolic swallowing of the serpent. So the symbolic swallowing of the serpent and being able to, of course, coalesce with that and resonate with that energy. And so, the initiation requirements were that not every woman could attempt parthenogenesis, but that when those who could, all the accounts of really what happened are veiled, of course, from that far back of a period, there are only threads that exist of what may have happened. But what is absolutely known from the carryovers from the tradition today is that isolation was part of the ritual where the priestess would retreat to fast and abstain from male contact for a lunar cycle or more. There would be an invocation of cosmic partner. She'd invoke deities, Osiris as the seed of Sirius, or Nomo as water beings. Of course, Osiris being represented by Orion and coming from there, and Isis coming from Sirius as the progenitors. And there were chants of this and drumming frequencies about this to align with this frequency in trance. The womb activation happened through, of course, the breath work and the sound, the sonic rays from this, and the serpent rising. All of this, of course, through this undulating alignment and resonance. And so the womb would be ignited to mirror the cosmic egg that was the progenitor of all of this. And so this is the elemental seeding of human life on this planet from the star Sirius, or we have accounts of Venus as well, being the light that was absorbed through ritual positioning or reflective water, that light of Venus. Of course, the water, immersion, the libations infused with herbs, and the offerings, even that we have today, have gone back through time immemorial, and the breath and the flame work. So we had the Martian gut chakra card today of processing. So a lot of processing, of course, as spirit beings having a human experience, we embody a very dense form. And so the use of fire is very important to synchronize with this uterine pulse of the cosmic egg of the universe. And so this conception, um, through ritual, the priestess's womb aligned as microcosm of the cosmic egg and was believed to magnetize and gestate spirit directly into flesh. So when they talk about the birth mysteries from the priesthood and the priestesses specifically, of course, this is what they're talking about. The child was considered therefrom a child of the goddess. Okay. And so, therefore, belonging to the lineage of Isis, Mami, Yemaya, rather than any man. Okay. The child belonged to the goddess. And as such, the children were trained as prophets, healers, or rulers, inheriting legitimacy from their mother's spiritual power. And so that is the matrilineal bloodline that birthed the pharaonic kingship. Okay. And prior to it being called Egypt, of course, it was Cush and Kemet. So this birth often occurred in water, and these were water temples or grottos, symbolizing the child coming forth from the waters of creation itself. So the birth temples would embody all of this. And of course, this is where the baptismal tradition comes from. Okay. The European picking and choosing through this, of course, appropriation. And that's what children do. They copy what their parents do. And so when patriarchal Christianity encountered this, they rescripted it, of course, as Mary becomes, quote, pure in a moral sexual sense, not sovereign in a cosmic sense. God replaces Sirius or Nomo as the cosmic seed. Male priesthoods narrate and control the story, stripping women of the technique. And the mystery becomes a miracle, unattainable, not a discipline, just something that God, the white finger from the sky, gives someone. So the thing is, the mommy Isis priestesses birthed alone because they were trained to become the cosmic womb itself. That wasn't just kind of something they kind of did and maybe it happened and maybe it didn't. That's what they were trained to do. So when you were born an empath, that's what you were trained to do. And we mirrored the universe's self generative principle. There are both the serpent, the spiral, the waters, and through the years of discipline and lunar ritual drew life directly from source. So, all of this nervous energy that we waste, all of this worrying that we waste, all of these illnesses is misdirected energy. It's meant to be trained toward this type of empowerment and embodiment. So, um, Christianity didn't just impose its hierarchy, it co opted and inverted African and indigenous matriarchal traditions. These were known all over the world at that time. And the case of the Vodou is textbook. Okay, Mami Wata is the origin of Vodou. It began as a women's sacred custodianship, the Mami priestesses, water mothers, serpent keepers, and was gradually masculinized. Well, first it was Europeanized. Well, no, first it was masculinized through Kemet, were the original patriarchs, and then it was Europeanized, but it gave men the control, regulating women to supporting and sexualized roles that are still played out today. But not all men were universally complacent. And there's a long record, often buried, of men who protected, supported, and even defended the matriarchal priesthood. And so I want to bring them forward next time. I want to talk about what we know about them, especially those in the mommy order. Why was she so despised? And what were the depths of this envy? And what is it that we need to know today to inform our intergender relationships? What is it that we need to know to empower our own sexuality and sense of self? And I want to really delve into this. But as we close, we want to look at the call of the return, because this is the essence of what we're returning to. I will share some more about this process and what this power entails, and how, what, and where it meant the most in this era of humanity. But for our era and how it mirrors it, we're talking about the call of the return of this gifting to its proper place. Now, I don't know how many of us are going to actually perform parthenogenesis, and I doubt any of us will until maybe some subsequent lifetimes when the traditions are reactivated. But the question is not only where we are in time, but what is time asking of us? If this is the threshold of the age of return, we are the midwives, the sibyls, the mamis, the priestesses, the prophets did not only prophesy destruction, which they did, they saw this age coming and those that preceded it. They foretold remembrance. So even 4, 6, 8, 10,000 years ago, they were teaching remembrances of this era, this golden age during that time when the golden age had ended. So, through their ancient map of metals, they were the ones who gave the metal ages, and we'll talk about that. Through their wisdom of the stars that they brought to the world and sacred cycles, it is more than possible that we too will find our way home. Thanks for listening. I hope that has been helpful to you in some way today. It's important to have a strong foundation as we move forward in this series on trigger management and on our return home, which is our goal internally, to cut through all the chaos and heal as our personal post-chaos. In the meantime and in between time, remember, Great Mother loves you, and I do too.